That cannot be explained by scientific methods.
Told of a creature that was 6.5 to 7 feet tall.
The CIA ran secret mind control experiments.
It's a tale of a creature that's been seen by many, but believed by few.
And experts say there have been reported sightings of paranormal activity.
And there was this creature, and it ran down this hill.
They say something was flying over their house, and they have no idea what it was.
How the world's most powerful individuals are actually shape-shifting reptilians.
My scariest ghost hunting experience.
Jason and JV.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Can't handle the truth.
Beyond reality. Radio.
It's Thursday on the West Coast, Friday on the East Coast. Many of you are stuck in between. Welcome to Beyond Reality Radio with myself, Jason Hawes, and the always awesome JV Johnson.
It's great to be here as always. This is kind of our, well, it's, as you said, Friday morning on the East. So it's kind of our Friday here as we get ready for a holiday weekend. Great 4th of July weekend. It's always a great time of the year.
Yeah, and this is going to be a heck of a show tonight.
Oh, the Tonight Show? Absolutely. We've been talking about this one for a while.
Yeah, well, especially with all the, I mean, with all the shows that are coming up on this. There was a great Netflix show on about HH Holmes. Well, that's going to be the subject tonight is HH Holmes, just so everybody knows. But yeah, we're going to be talking with Jeff Mudget about his ancestor and about his book Bloodstains and the new show that he's got coming on the History Channel called American Ripper.
Yeah, Jeff is the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes, who lived in the late 19th century, moved all over the country. His notorious home was in Chicago. It's called the Murder Castle or Castle Murder or something like that.
Murder Castle.
Yeah, unbelievably strange place. It was, I think it was torn down in 1936, so unfortunately it's not there today to be able to, be toured or whatever. Imagine doing an investigation there.
Well, look at some of the, if you can still find some of the floor plans online. And I'll see about posting some of those on Beyond Reality Radio's Facebook page, facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio. And it is downright creepy. I mean, the place was just set up for the purpose of murder.
It was using and trapping people too. I mean,
well, yeah, making you really. He turned the whole thing into a game, a sport. I guess you'd want to refer to it even more as. Yeah. Yeah. It's just downright, it's terrifying. I can't wait for the show. It starts July 11th. And I'm excited about this. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear more about that. I'm also very anxious to hear about Jeff's personal journey. I know that as he started to research this stuff, he started battling some demons of his own as he grappled with this information.
It's got to be tough.
It's got to be very difficult. And not only did he just look at how his family tree worked, but he also, when he realized he was related to H.H. Holmes, he started to dig into those crimes, and he believes there were many hundreds of victims of this man. He himself confessed to 27 murders. Some of those in the confession actually turned out to not be true because the people were still alive. But there is a lot of thought that there were far more victims than were ever realized.
He confessed 27, but there were 9 that were confirmed, though some reports actually say that there were 200 or more.
Yeah.
So, 200, 225, 250 people. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah, and in case anybody's trying to, make the connection here, H. Holmes was an alias. His real name was Herman Webster Mudget. And of course, Jeff Mudget is a direct descendant.
So it's going to be a great show. If you haven't yet, head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio, like the Facebook page. Then head over to beyondrealityradio.com. You can find all the stations we air on right there just by clicking the station list. We're going to be updating that with even more stations soon, like the next week or so. Or you can download the free iPhone and Android app right there on the website, which allows you to listen to the show live, catch past episodes, also join us in chat, or you can listen right from the website. Just click the listen live. It connects you right into the chat room. You can listen from there while talking with us.
Yeah, and of course, tomorrow night is going to be a best of program, as every Friday is. And then because of the 4th of July holiday, we'll have a couple of repeats on Monday night and Tuesday night, so we won't be live. Or if I guess it would be Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, depending on where you are.
We'll probably be at the hospital having our fingers reattached after playing with all the fireworks.
Somebody had chatted earlier and said, hey, can't you guys just let off the fireworks and then do the show? I said, no. If we did that, something would definitely blow up.
Or let off the fireworks while we're doing the show.
That would be quite the
spectacle. I mean, it's not like we don't have enough that we're trying to worry about during the show.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
We can make sure we're hitting the right buttons and everything else.
Right. Yeah. Just a little gunpowder and matches. That's all we need to add to that mix. But when we do come back live on Wednesday night, Dr. Barbie Breathitt will be joining us. She's an experienced teacher, a published author, a prophetic voice, a dream interpreter, and a healing minister. We'll have a lot to talk to her about. And then Thursday, Glynis McCant, who is the numbers lady. She's got over 20 years of experience studying numerology. And she says that she can take someone's name and their date of birth and then discover exactly who they really are with that information. So we'll see if that's going to be...
that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, I think it could be. But I will be taking listener calls for all that. And of course, we'll take some tonight too. The number is 844-687-7669.
Again, toll free at 844-687-7669. You want to take a quick break, Jim? Because I'm sure we've got a lot to talk with Jeff about. So, all right, you're listening to Jason and JV on Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back right after this.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it.
Hey, guys in chat. I can barely hear myself. Hey, guys in chat. Just want to say hey during the break. Thanks to the 7 of you. Well, now 6 of you that are there. The minute I turn the mic on, we lose one. But now we got 8 now. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I'm going to try to say hi during the breaks, but I can't do it while the show is running because that'll go out on the air with the show. So good thing I don't have a boog. Me in there? Really? Is that what we're talking about? I didn't know I didn't have one. I can't tell because there's this halo on my head. I just don't know what that means. Anyways, hang in there. It's a great program about HH Holmes tonight. So hope you enjoy it. And tomorrow night, I'll be live and we'll continue the stream as well. So it'll be awesome stuff. And I'm going to grab a beer. So feel free to grab yourself an adult beverage and enjoy the program. Talk to you later.
I don't mind you coming here, wasting all my time.
Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio with Jason and JV. Telephone number is 844-687-7669. We've been very, very excited about tonight's program. We're going to be bringing in our guest in just a few moments, Jeff Mudget. He's an author and an attorney. He's also the great-great-grandson of HH Holmes, who is noted to be America's first serial killer, at least by the definition and the standards by which we mark that title today. And his crimes are notorious. His life is almost the stuff of myth. Just an unbelievable story. Jeff tells it in a book called Bloodstains. By the way, the website is bloodstainsthebook.com. And there's just so much to talk about when we bring Jeff in.
Well, but I want everybody out there to understand that we're not excited because we're talking about a serial killer.
Right.
It's more just trying to understand, I guess, just trying to understand the life and what was really going through the head of HH Holmes. I think that's more where it is, because it's so out there that I don't know. You look at the stories, you look at actually the design of the murder castle that was built, and it's just so intriguing to try to comprehend how this is possible and how these things could run through somebody's head.
Well, it's just a perfect example of the truth being stranger than fiction. And, there's no better way to illustrate that point than the story we're about to talk about with Jeff. So, yeah. Our guest in, Jeff Mudget. Jeff, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. It's so great to have you in the program tonight.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's an honor. I'm really privileged to be on Beyond Reality tonight.
Oh, well, thank you, Jeff. And you and I have talked, and I told you I'm looking forward to this tonight.
It's a story that needs to be told. It's been kind of hidden away for so long. When you compare it to like Jack the Ripper, where how the media, a new author comes out with a new theory about Jack the Ripper every year, and this story about H.H. Holmes, the real killer that should be told about, it kind of has lied dormant for so long. And then when you had Eric Larson came out with that great book, The Devil in the White City, and now movies being made about it, and then finally History Channel giving me my chance, I got to tell you, this is the story that needs to be told.
And that's a great point, because I was introduced to the H.H. Holmes stories fairly recently, and it may have been a Netflix documentary or something. And I thought, why haven't I heard about this? I mean, this is something that needs to be told and studied and understood. And before we get into the details of it, though, Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you've had quite a personal journey.
And journey is the right way to describe it. I was a California lawyer for 40 years. I going on happily, had a beautiful family, living for all those things we think are what creates a success. When finally my grandfather told the family our secret about where we came from, and it all came to an end, because I knew the things that I had considered about myself as strange, maybe idiosyncrasies. I knew I had to look into them more after what he had told us was why I was here alive today, and it had to do with pure evil.
Well, and I think that's got to be one of the toughest things is, everybody loves to look back at their family tree and see, oh, well, this is what my grandfather did. This is what my great-grandfather did. But you looking back at your family tree has to be intriguing in one aspect, but also terrifying in another.
Well, there's no doubt about that. When you look back, when you have your grandfather finally, really relinquish the hound, so to speak, and give this family the secret. I mean, he hadn't even told my grandmother, guys, who wouldn't have married him had he told her the truth. And when you realize this isn't just a killer. This is a man who created the murder castle in preparation for the millions of people who came to Chicago to see the World's Fair. The World's Fair where Edison, Tesla, all these incredible, scientists and inventors were at. And he built this thing so that when young, innocent women came to Chicago and they picked a hotel 2 miles from the biggest Ferris wheel ever created or built, they stayed at his place and he could do with them as he wished.
As this story was being told to you from your family, there was kind of an awakening, if you will. First of all, the first question is, was it not understood because you didn't realize that HH Holmes' real name was Mudget? I mean, was that part of the problem? The pseudonym fooled you or threw you off the track? Is that how he remained anonymous in your family for so long?
No, that's a great question. No, the man had 31 aliases. So
31.
31. The Chicago Tribune called him the greatest con artist that ever struck Chicago. All right. The Harper's Magazine called his murder castle the place that God allowed evil to run amok. So we're not talking about a serial killer. We're talking about an evil genius. And when you really think back about it, and the fact that this was in America, the real Dr. Frankenstein, where a basement was at, where a furnace, acid baths, lime pits were created so that he could torture and experiment on innocent victims and then remove their human remains so that the law enforcement wouldn't catch him. And he was largely successful. It's something, you guys, when you think about it, you think, no. This doesn't happen in America.
Well, yeah, you don't think that this happens really anywhere to that extreme. Of course, people are murdered all the time, but just somebody who put so much time, effort, and forethought into it.
No, and when you go back to that scene of this World's Fair where 20 million people from around the world came to visit, and when you envision riding that Ferris wheel I already mentioned, and seeing from the top of that ride the murder castle only 2 miles away, it gives a different perspective to the whole story. And what I've tried to do in writing Bloodstains and then getting History Channel to help me tell the real story is maybe to give a different perspective for people in Chicago, in America, to see that this kind of evil, while I'm not celebrating it, and I know, and your guys' opening of the story was well put, we're not celebrating this evil, this serial killer, but we want to try to understand what made a man like that tick. Here's a man who went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, who had a medical degree, who had one of the highest intellects, IQs ever recorded. He could have been the inventor of drugs or pharmaceuticals that prevented illness. Instead, he made a conscious decision that he wanted to murder, that he wanted to find out what caused innocence to yield to his stature, his elegance, his hypnotism, those things. And I got to tell you, with help like your show, we'll go further to understand that there is this evil in human life. We need to understand it, and we need to prevent it from going any further.
So as your family was being told by, I think you said your grandfather, the truth about all this, what was going on amongst your family? I mean, and you personally, how did you handle that news, and how did it change the way you thought about your life?
I wrote a full chapter about that, and when my grandfather revealed the secret, he was a quiet, stoic man, and looking back, I didn't like my grandfather. I didn't even call him grandpa. I used to call him uncle because I knew it would infuriate him and my father when I did. But this was a man who knew when I was a little boy, I loved to fish. He used to fish, but my grandfather never invited me to go fishing with him. If you can try to feel that emotion that went through me as a little boy, and I hated him. But now looking back at what he had to live with, I mean, we're talking about my grandfather's grandfather, who was really the O.J. Simpson of the time. When this man was put on trial for murder, every newspaper in America was there covering this story. This was a man who fired his own lawyers and conducted his own defense, despite having never gone to law school or learned any of the methods of trial. And still today, some of the methods, guys, that he used at this trial are taught to lawyers in law school today. That's the genius he was.
Wow. We're talking with Jeff Mudget. He's an attorney and an author. His book is called Bloodstains, and the website is bloodstainsthebook.com. Jeff is the great-great-grandson of the notorious and I guess an evil genius, HH Holmes, and we're going to continue talking about that. We're going to have to go to break here, Jay.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are already lining up because they've got questions for you, and we'll be opening up the phones in just a little while. We just want to get a little more into the story and a lot more information out there. So, but yeah, so if you haven't yet, head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio. Make sure you like the Facebook page. Then head to beyondrealityradio.com. Find any of the great stations we air on across the country, or download the free iPhone and Android app, which allows you to listen live, catch past shows, and also join the online chat. So you listen to Jason and JV on Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
All the time.
Anyway, so hey guys, gang, good to see you all in the chat here. If you're watching the live stream, just so you know, normally I would be live while we do this, but it's a best of program tonight, and I just thought I'd have a little fun in this live stream chat. So that's why I'm here. It's a best of program tonight talking about H.H. Holmes, the most notorious serial killer in American history. And tomorrow night we'll be live. I'm not even sure who the guest is. We'll have to figure that out. But tomorrow night it'll be a live program. So in the meantime, I'm hanging out here with you, chatting a little bit. If you're watching the stream and you haven't joined the chat part of this, you got to create an account. It's very easy to do. And you can get in on the chat too. So good to see you all here. And thanks for the support. Talk to you next break. Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio, Jason and JV. Thanks for joining us. Whether you're listening to a great radio station that's carrying the show across the country or you're listening online, we welcome you all to the show.
Yes, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. And we are talking about a really interesting topic tonight. We're talking about HH Holmes, which, America's most notorious serial killer. And it's such an interesting topic. It really is.
And the point has already been made, and I think we were talking about it last night as well. We're a lot of us are familiar with people like Ted Bundy and Ed Gein, and who was the guy that dressed up like the clown there, Mace.
William Macy. No, not William Macy. That's
but you know what I'm talking about.
I know you're
Gacy, John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, thank you.
Right? Is that what?
Yes.
I mean, those are the names that we're used to hearing about, and they're all pretty well contemporary. But this particular person, H.H. Holmes, which was an alias, by the way, really is a story that hasn't been told enough. And as our guest will continue to talk about, Jeff Mudget, he's an author and attorney, and he's written a book called Bloodstains, which is about his great-great-grandfather, H.H. Holmes. The website is bloodstainsthebook.com. But Jeff, there's something to be said for understanding people who do things like this. You learn things, and you learn how to spot this kind of behavior earlier. You learn how to maybe prevent it when you see certain characteristics in people early in their lives. I mean, that's a lot of what we have to do here when we study these stories, isn't it?
There's no doubt about that, and that's one of the reasons why when History Channel and Arts and Entertainment contacted me about turning my book into a television series titled American Ripper, they didn't want to do it to celebrate this evil, this killer. They wanted to do it so that we all learn to understand what made a human capable of doing these terrible things and possibly preventing it from ever happening again.
And as we learn more and more about the story, I mean, we're going to get into the details of this because you've studied it, up and down and sideways. But as we learn more about this story, we recognize that there are characteristics in a person like this that we always hear the story. He was like the guy next door, or he was this, that, and the other thing. It's not something that's easily detectable in somebody, especially when they're as good of a con man as H.H. Holmes was.
Yeah, this one is not the guy next door. This is a man who was very elegant, incredibly intelligent. He had 4 or 5 wives, obviously most of them illegal. He had hundreds of mistresses. One of the stories I like to tell guys is during his trial, when the jury came back and rendered him guilty and the judge sentenced him to death, the newspapers reported about 4 or 5 of his women in the jury, in the audience, standing up while he was let off in shackles, crying, despite knowing exactly what this man had been and was. They loved this man, even though he was this monster.
And see, it's such a weird thing because you sit there and of course, love is just, it's one of those connections, but do you think maybe they just didn't believe that this person that they knew that they were married to could actually be this evil of an individual?
No, not at all. Some of them even assisted him in his crimes. I got to tell you that I don't know much about the character Rasputin, although I do know he had the ability to manipulate human beings to where they would act in ways that weren't their true character. Holmes had the ability. He had many 2, 3, 4 men who would help him murder, dispose of the human remains, and then cover his tracks so that law enforcement could never track him down. There's something to that. I haven't been able to identify what allows someone to do something like that with another human being, but there needs to be someone smarter than I am that pushes this further and maybe finds out, because I think it has to do with the despots in our history, maybe some of the world leaders that we all consider the most horrible. There's something there that we need to learn from this.
Well, now there's reports when you actually look them up, and let me know if they're true, that there were sort of early signs on with your great grandfather Holmes, with everything from torturing and killing animals to messing around with medicine. I know there were reports that he may have been responsible for a death of a friend at a young age. Now, are any of those true?
Yeah, I think they are. And I think, my book Bloodstains is more about my journey, guys. Once my grandfather told the family the truth, and I decided, wait a minute. I've got to find out what are these things inside me that make me different from others. Now, you've got some great authors like Larson, like Harold Schechter, like John Borowski, who talk about those early stages in Holmes' life, about murdering children, the animals. He you know how he paid his way through college at University of Michigan? He robbed graves and sold the cadavers and then the skeletons to medical schools around the country. I mean, he started off early and he just evolved into pure evil.
But that's not uncommon though for back then. That was a pretty notorious thing, right? For people to honestly steal bodies from graves and turn them, sell them to doctors and so forth for medical practice. I know I investigated a bunch of locations on Ghost Hunters that had that doctors would actually get a lot of these bodies in that they would buy from grave robbers, and they would use for testing purposes.
Oh, you're right on the money. They were getting as much as $2,000 for a skeleton. And what happens with that, Jason, is that when a grave robber figures out that it's too much work tracking down a newly buried cadaver, digging it up, and then cleaning it off, selling it.
They start making their own.
They start making their own.
Yeah.
So let's rewind this a little bit. We know that your book is not a biography of HH Holmes. It's your personal journey, and we're going to get into more of that part of it. But tell us what you know and what you researched and what you learned about HH Holmes as an individual, and what you learned about his crimes.
Well, I got to tell you, when I think of Holmes, and you guys are right, his actual name is Herman Webster Mudget, and he's my great-great-grandfather, my grandfather's grandfather. He didn't like that name. He liked Holmes. It had that rhyme with Sherlock Holmes. It had that beautiful sound to it to him. And that's kind of like how his life was. His clothes he wore, the luxurious things he wanted to live with, to eat, and to show others that his ego, so that he could show them what kind of a success he was. But when I think of Holmes, I almost think of when you go to a legal dictionary and you come to the word premeditated, they should put his picture there, because here's a man who realized the World's Fair was coming to Chicago. He knew millions of innocent people were going to come, which law enforcement could not keep track of. He bought a piece of property at a junction of the railroads where the one line would come from downtown Chicago. The other line would go out to the lake where the fair would be. He committed fraud on the couple that owned the property. Evidently, the man disappeared and the woman was murdered. He was the beneficiary of a will that gave him that property. No one's really ever nailed down exactly how that occurred, except it's not that hard for us all to imagine what went on. And then he built a murder castle, a factory of death, where people would come, rent a room. He would enter gas into the room, asphyxiate them, either to death or render them unconscious. His assistants would enter the room, send the body down a chute to where it was caught on a gurney in the basement, and he could either torture or experiment them to his heart's desire and then sell the skeleton. It's like we discussed earlier. It's not something which should happen in America. And I think it's something which finally, after 130 years, with the help of History Channel and with Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio, we're going to finally see the story of this horrible monster that lived in Chicago.
Now, that murder castle was, I believe, demolished in 1936 or somewhere around there. So it's not around today to view. Imagine if it was, it would be, and whether this is good or bad, I'm not sure, but it would be quite a tourist attraction because it's actually something that, despite its black stain in history, it's probably something that would be worth remembering. Just like, our Holocaust museums, or we need to remember that those things occurred. It might be an interesting a place to visit if it were still standing there.
Jason, and you and I have something in common on this. I've been down in the basement. It was bought in 1937, you're correct, by the United States Post Office, who tore it down and then built a post office which still stands at 63rd and Wallace in Inglewood today. I went down into the basement 3 times, once with History Channel on haunted history. And obviously the basement is not the same today as it was then. It's interesting though. The employees at the post office will not go down in the basement. And it was largely barricaded until we talked the superintendent into allowing the curator to take my assistant and I down into the basement where, and I write about this. I'm not a paranormaler. I don't believe in spirits. I don't believe in the supernatural. But when I went down those stairs into the same area where the basement of the murder castle was, I got to tell you, there were feelings that emerged not only from the area and the building itself, but also from my heart and soul, which I have no doubt that had to do with the torture and agony which had occurred there.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, my mic was down. Well, you think of the negativity just the negativeness that went on there. That whether you're a believer in the paranormal or not, I'm sure you can agree that if there's just torture and negativity anywhere, that energy can attach to something. It can attach to an area or whatever. It doesn't have to mean that there's a spirit there, but even knowing what happened in that area is just enough of a weight on your shoulder to get those sensations and sit back and imagine the things that those people were going through.
Well, exactly. And then think about knowing that the screams and the cries and the bloodshed that was there was caused by the man who was responsible for you being alive on the earth here today. And it took me 2 or 3 years to get over that fact and decide that, wait a minute, this horrible man wasn't my ancestor. My ancestor was the truth and justice for the victims that hadn't been identified yet that he had murdered. And that's the journey that I put myself on.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that journey, that specific journey. It's Jeff Mudget. He's our guest tonight. He's an author and attorney. His book is called Bloodstains.
All right. We'll be right back after this.
Singing that she's climbing up. She drinks bourbon from her daddy's favorite coffee cup. Like it.
Okay, so thanks to everybody for being in here. I'd like to see some new names, new faces. Great to have everybody along. It's kind of a little private thing we got going on here. Don't tell anybody, but tell everybody. Generally silence during the breaks while the show's not running. Tomorrow night I'll be live. I will be on the stream and live on the radio as well. So it'll all be good stuff. Hey, Bill, good to see you in the chat. Welcome to the dark side.
A Monday warrior, mean strike. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride. Though his mind is not for him, don't put him down his head again.
You know, it's a tough thing to walk this fine line between, as we've said several times already tonight, celebrating a serial killer versus trying to understand it. And we're trying to, make sure it's clear we're on the side of just understanding here, certainly not celebrating.
Yeah. And I think we've done a great job with that. And Jeff is the same thing. Jeff's doing the same thing. I mean, this is one of his ancestors, but it's not that he's not celebrating that by any means. He's gotten into it to try to understand. And that's why we've got him on, and he's just a great individual in general. But there's in no way excitement about a serial killer to us. It's more just trying to understand what takes somebody and makes them choose that path.
Yeah. I mean, how somebody can do things like this to other people and seemingly enjoy it. And that's the big question here. And again, Jeff is our guest. He is an author and an attorney. The book, by the way, is Bloodstains. The website is bloodstainsthebook.com. Jeff, again, thanks for joining us. We get listener calls periodically through here. We've got some people that are waiting on hold. So I just want to take one quick call here. before we continue with your story. This is Robert from California. Robert, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio. You're on with JV, Jason, and Jeff Mudget.
Hello, Jason. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Robert. How are you?
All right. Hey, Jeff. I was wondering. I was reading something online. Did he get buried 10 feet like you requested?
Yeah, that's a great question. I read it as well. He wanted to be encased in cement and buried 10 feet deep so that people wouldn't rob his body or his corpse and then dissect it. Whatever happened? Do you know, Jeff?
Well, that's a great question, Robert. And one of the things that History Channel agreed to help me with was one of my theories was that Holmes escaped his execution. It wasn't him buried at this spot ever, and that he went on to be a free man and murder in anonymity again. So we had lawyers involved. We had a judge agree. And what you guys will see on American Ripper is we actually exhumed the grave.
Ooh.
We're doing DNA testing with the University of Pennsylvania and London University, and we're going to determine once and for all if it was Holmes buried in the grave or not.
Well, that'll answer your question definitively, Robert. You won't have any questions after that, for sure.
And one more question for you, Jason.
Yeah.
Is there any in future ghost hunters returning?
We are in talks. I can't say too much right now, but I got to be honest with you. We kind of opened the door to this whole genre, and since there's been so many shows that have come and just pretty much copycatted what we did. When we come back, I want it to be different. I want to change it up a little bit because now everybody's doing what we've done for 13 years. But we are in talks with a bunch of major networks and about bringing Ghost Hunters back, and that's all I can really say at this point.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Robert. We appreciate you weighing in on the topic.
Let me just say, Jeff, you just threw such a kink into this whole story. Now I'm totally lost with this. With him being buried and possibly not being him. I mean, that changes everything.
Well, and it's going to be on national television. I got to tell you guys, I'm on pins and needles right now. For 20 years, I've researched the stories about how Holmes was allegedly buried, whether he escaped execution or not. And to have the great people at History Channel back me up on this and spend the millions of dollars that were needed, I got to tell you, I'm very excited. This isn't one of those stories where an author says, "Listen, I know who Jack the Ripper was. It's this and this and this," and then walks away from it. We've actually gone the final mile, and we're going to go yes or no facts and prove one way or the other whether the legend and lore is true. And I got to tell you, that's the way investigation should be done instead of this fake news stuff that we're all so used to now.
And I 100% and JV 100% agrees with you on that exact comment. And it's so nice being able to tune into something that you're going to have some sort of closure and knowledge from at the end.
Yeah, and we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of the journey that Jeff went through as he discovered what his family tree showed him and what he was going through personally, because it's quite a story, involves some paranormal components, definitely some soul searching as well.
Yeah, and every page you turn, it just opens up a new can of worms when you're looking through it. But all right, well, yeah, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a lot more. Take down the number. It's 844-687-7669. Toll free, 844-687-7669. You're listening to Jason and JV on Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Wonder what it would sound like. This doesn't sound great, though, does it? Welcome, everybody, to the YouTube stream for Beyond Reality Radio. Tomorrow night, I'll be live, and it'll be a new program. Tonight, it's a best of program. We're talking about HH Holmes, the notorious serial killer. And I see there's floating between 6 and 8 of you, and Toei is 4 of those people. So, yeah, we got a great crowd going. And Alex just went up and got chips. So there we go. There are going to be crumbs all over my console. I can see it now.
It's Thursday on the West Coast, Friday on the East Coast. Many of you are stuck in between. Welcome to Beyond Reality Radio with myself, Jason Hawes, and the always awesome JV Johnson, who cannot hit the right feed button.
It wasn't the button. It was you and I were talking, and I'm like, oh, you're like, oh, here we go. I'm like, wait a second, I'm not ready. Jeez, I'm like, all right, here we
How
are.
do we get so lost during break?
We just start talking about stuff, and just, I don't know.
It's random stuff.
Laughing, sending pictures to each other. It's the same old stuff, same story. It's a Cinderella story, really. But welcome everybody to Beyond Reality Radio. Great to have you along. We're having a great conversation tonight. We're talking with Jeff Mudget, who is an author and an attorney. His book is called Bloodstains, and the website is bloodstainsbook.com. And we're going to continue that conversation just in a few minutes.
And also talking to him about his television series that's coming up in just a couple weeks on the History Channel called American Ripper. And I am hugely excited about this.
Yeah, that's right. That's going to be fantastic, and we really need to get into that a little bit more as well. I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night's program, as every Friday night is a best of program from the week, and then for Monday and Tuesday nights, it's a 4th of July weekend, holiday weekend, so we will be repeating shows from earlier broadcasts, and then we'll be back live on Wednesday night with Dr. Barbie Breathitt. She is a healing minister and a dream interpreter. We always have a lot of fun with the dream interpreters.
Yeah, and then Thursday, we're going to be talking with Glynis McCants, the numbers lady with over 20 years of experience studying numerology, and she's the author of numerous books, so we're going to be talking to her about that. So should be fun.
Yeah, it should be a great week once it picks up. I hope everybody has some great plans for the 4th of July weekend, gets a chance to enjoy some time with friends and
Lots
family.
Of fireworks and booze. So
yeah, that's a great combination.
If you haven't yet, head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio. Make sure you like the Facebook page. Head over to beyondrealityradio.com, where you can find any of the great stations we air on across the country. We'll be actually updating that list with a bunch more in just about a week or so. Or you can download the free Android and iPhone app right there from the website, which allows you to listen to the show live on the go, listen to past episodes, join us during the chat, or you can listen right at the website. Just click the listen live button and join the online chat, the interactive chat. So, all right, so let's take a quick break because we've got a lot to talk about with Jeff, and I want to get him back on. So you listen to Jason and JV and Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be right back after this.
This one goes out to the one I love. This one.
Okay, so I have no idea what this sounds like on here.
Sound like
Just about.
no.
Here I stand, head in hand. Here I stand, head in hand, turn my face to the wall. If she's gone, I can't go on, feeling 2 foot small. She said to me, love will find a way. Gather round, all you clowns, let me hear you say, you've got to hide your love away. got to hide your love away.
I can't play too long. It'll go live on the air. We don't want that.
Don't touch me, I'm a real live wire. Psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? Run, 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 run away.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's Beyond
What a
Reality.
perfect lead-in
I know,
song.
right? Doesn't get any more perfect than that. Tonight's topic is the story of, it's the story of Jeff Mudget, who's an author and an attorney, found out he was the great-great-grandson of HH Holmes, the notorious serial killer, considered actually America's first serial killer. The book's called Bloodstains, and the website is bloodstainsthebook.com.
And for everybody out there, H.H. Holmes, his real name was Herman Webster Mudget. So I know it can get a little confusing, but as we heard earlier from Jeff, he had endless identities. So
yeah, he changed his name depending on where he was living, a lot of times to elude capture for cons and other crimes that he committed, in above and beyond the things he was doing to people, which was basically torturing and murdering. But Jeff, welcome back to the program again. Thanks for joining us tonight, and let's start talking about what you went through as you learned about your family tree, and then you came to terms with it. It was quite a transformation in you as well.
It was quite a journey, and it took me a number of years. I was a successful practicing lawyer in California, had the office in San Francisco, did all the right things. And then when my grandfather laid this bombshell on me, and I realized that everything that I had thought my life had been built upon, any foundation whatsoever, had been a fraud. It pretty much tore me apart. And rather than just continue on, as some of my other family members did, I needed to look deeper into it. And that's when I decided, wait a minute. These stories, these legends, these lores about this killer, they just didn't make sense. The newspaper articles didn't add up. and I needed to put a a magnifying glass on them. And when I did, as you guys accurately mentioned, every time you turn the page about this guy, another issue crops up, which only leads you further down the rabbit hole.
Well, and Jeff, why do you think your grandfather felt the need to fill you in on your ancestor?
That's a wonderful question. And my grandmother, she believed that we were all related to the General Robert E. Lee. As a matter of fact, she made my mother give me that middle name Lee. And back in those days, in order to find a genealogy, you had to spend quite a bit of money. And she put the money down, and the experts came back to her after a period of time and said, it's better to let this sleeping dog lie. This isn't Robert E. Lee. This is and they fibbed it. This is a horse thief in Arkansas. Well, my brother was of the inquisitive mind that he was, decided, no, that didn't make sense. So he went and did some research for my grandmother, and they found out it had come to be this killer in Chicago. When one night at dinner, my brother was discussing his findings to the family, my grandfather, as I already mentioned, this quiet stoic man, jumped up from the table, slammed his chair back, knocked the painting behind him over, and said, "That name Herman will never be mentioned in this house again," and stormed out of the room while looking directly at me. And as you can imagine, that was something that needed to be delved further into. And when I did, it never stopped.
Okay. But in other words, your grandfather really didn't want you all to dig into your family tree. He was hoping that, well, if you guys did, you sort of get lost and you wouldn't find this connection. But when you started to, it sort of infuriated him.
Oh yeah. And back, in those days, pre-Wi-Fi, pre-Google, you could get away with that secretive stuff. I mean, my whole family, guys, during that trial of Herman, they all moved out west from New Hampshire to California, and they got away from it because, this was the O.J. Simpson trial. Every newspaper in America had a reporter there at the trial. So they moved west, and they got away with it for a while. But then it kind of caught up, and now with shows like yours, my book, and now movies by Scorsese and series by The History, well, we're gonna start finding out the truth about HH Holmes.
When your family was wrestling with this, and you were personally, Jeff, did you start? I got the impression from some of the things you said that you started to feel some things inside of you stirring that you were kind of concerned with as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and I try to write about that in the book. It's not an easy subject to cover. I don't know if it'd be easy for a Hemingway or a Shakespeare, to tell you the truth, but I knew I was different, guys. I wasn't a murderer. I wasn't a serial killer. I wasn't evil, but I had thoughts which always puzzled me from when I was a little boy, growing up through adolescence into maturity. And they bothered me. And I knew there was something there for them to be what they were. And when my grandfather dropped this bomb on me, it all came home to roost. And quite frankly, it wasn't something I could just look the other way. I needed to find out more about it, and I try to cover that in the book. That's why when I explained to you guys what Bloodstains is about, it's not about how many windows were at the murder castle or how many people Holmes murdered, which so many of the books argue back and forth about. This is about me understanding that this horrible man, is why I'm alive today, and I'm hoping that understanding can be passed on, like we discussed earlier, and as you guys excellently described. This isn't something to celebrate. This is something to understand so that we can prevent it again.
Yeah. So I guess some of the worry then, I guess, when you were looking into this was because when you look at H.H. Holmes, of course, you think of just evil. you think of just, negativity inside somebody. So I guess a concern that you would have had was, could that have been genetically passed down through to the rest of the family?
Precisely. And the phrase is, as you guys have heard many times, a chip off the old block. And when, and to be honest, all of us, if with a drink at the bar, we can all admit to certain thoughts which weren't pure. And now those thoughts that I had, they had a basis, they had a reason, and they needed to be spelled out for me to rest easy the rest of my life. And then that's what I've tried to do. And I got to tell you, writing the book, working with history, being able to display some of the truths that I found about this man, and to display some of the fraud and the con and the actual lies that some of the articles that wrote about him, portrayed him as, I got to tell you, I'm feeling much better about it.
Well, and that's interesting, because when you look into HH Holmes, there's a lot of information out there, and some of it's true, some of it's not. Some of it's been very tainted throughout the years. Like, and one of the sayings, like there was a thing of something that he had said at one point, and I'm not even sure if it was true, but it said, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was ushered into the world, and he has been with me since." Now, is that actually a quote that he did say?
That's a debate by many of the authors that have written about Holmes. I tend to think it's true. When you read, if you get a chance, guys, read his memoirs that he wrote while he was in prison. He was actually paid quite a bit of money by the Hearst Corporation to write confessions for them, which they put out in all the major newspapers. He also wrote a book of his memoirs, which history helped me go to the Library of Congress, where we got to see the original. Oh, wow. When you read that book and he describes some of his murders, it's probably I hate to use the word greatest, but the most descriptive example of a killer talking about murder that humankind has ever seen, and it's largely been forgotten. I got to tell you guys, if you want to see the mind of a killer, read Holmes's memoirs.
Okay, I'm almost scared to read them.
I know, it's kind of disturbing, and it probably dwarfs anything Stephen King could come up with. We're going to run out of time here, and in the minutes we have left before our bottom of the hour break, I want to pick up on the television series a little bit, the American Ripper and this History Channel effort that you were involved in. Now, you talk about exhuming the body of whoever was in HH Holmes's grave, and I'm assuming there's going to be some. You said your attempt to definitively determine whether or not it's his body in there. Were you used? Was it your genetics that are going to be used for the comparison?
Man, you nailed that one. It's my DNA that's going to be compared with the DNA taken from the cadaver. Yes.
Interesting. And I don't know if you know the answer or not yet, but tell us about the format of American Ripper. Is it a season long thing? Is it a couple of episodes? How's this going to work?
No, it's eight episodes. We air in July 11th, and history has been incredible producing this. And what they did was they noticed me giving my TED talk, where I discussed that my theory was that Holmes was also Jack the Ripper, and I brought up my evidence to the audience, swore them in as my grand jury, presented that evidence, and asked them to vote yes or no on it. And we got over 77% that voted yes from the evidence that Holmes was Jack the Ripper. When history saw that, they contacted me and said, "Hey, we want to go with you on your journey. We want to back you up. We want to provide the latest forensic technology and techniques to see if that theory holds water." And I got to tell you, the things we discovered about Holmes while he was in London are going to shock you guys.
How long were you investigating, filming, researching for this project?
we've been working on it a year. And Jason, you know what that does to your life when you have a production around a TV series and when they tell you, hey, this is going to change your life. Well, it really did.
Oh yeah, I mean, trust me, 13 years of it, and and it becomes crazy. But it gets to the point where, and I'm sure you dealt with it as well, where you get so used to the cameras always being there that you forget they're there, and you're just going about your routine.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I got to tell you, when I first started, the cameras were like a damn laser on me at first. They were burning my skin. When we finished, Jason, I could walk down the street with 4 cameras on me, and I didn't even know they were there.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I've done it. I've been walking through the streets of New Orleans. I've had 3 camera guys walking around me, and I just, and they just stay out of my way, but they're recording me from all directions. So, and it's so funny because a lot of people don't realize that when it comes down to TV, how, especially when you're filming a reality show, you just forget the cameras are there and you start living your life like you normally do, and they just roll.
Exactly.
So that starts July 11th. And is it a weekly thing for 8 episodes? Do you know how they're going to air it?
Yeah, every week for 8 episodes. They're already considering a second season, so we'll see how it does. And Jason, you know how that works. If it does well, then they'll run it again.
Yeah, I think it's going to do well.
And I'm certainly not going to ask you for the conclusion, but after the break, we're going to talk about this Jack the Ripper connection. But as far as the series go, does it come to a fairly definitive answer at the end of the eight episodes?
I hate to do this to you guys because you're my friends already, but you're going to have to tune in for that.
I figured we were
a nice setup. Well, nice save there, though, too. Legally, you really can't tell us too much. And you being a lawyer, I'm sure, well, you know that, so...
You guys know what an NDA is.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Non-disclosures, you got to love them.
Yeah. Okay, so listen, we don't have enough time to really get into the Jack the Ripper thing here, but we're going to talk about it on the other side of the break. And I also want to talk about the fact that I think I saw a quote from you, Jeff, at some point where he confessed to 27 victims, but you believe the number is more like in the hundreds.
Yeah, it's more than 27. It's when Holmes would start bragging, when his ego would start rolling, he was a pathological liar, and anything he said you had to take with a grain of salt.
Well, and I know that there has been reports in certain areas of upwards of 200, but we'll get into a lot of that when we come back. If you haven't yet, head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio. Make sure you like the Facebook page. Then head to beyondrealityradio.com. You can download the free iPhone and Android app, which allows you to listen to the show live, catch the past episodes, and also join the online chat during the live show. If you download the show from iTunes, do us a favor and just rate it for us. It helps push it forward. I know it's being downloaded thousands and thousands of times a day, and we greatly appreciate the support. We're going to take a quick break, and we come back a lot more. You listen to Jason and JV on Beyond Reality Radio.
Words, weapons, sharper than knives, makes you wonder how the other half died. Other half died.
All right, let's try this.
Funny you, all the rock. hope you understand that green eyes, yeah, the spotlight shines upon you. How could anybody deny you? Came here with a load, and it feels so much lighter since I met you. Honey, you should know that I could never go on without you. Green eyes. $99 of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. You take one down, you pass it around. 98 bottles of beer on the wall. Ouch. Yeah, I couldn't count and I couldn't remember the melody for that song. Sorry. Maybe next break I'll have it figured out. All right, we're cruising through another night, and it is quickly coming close to the close here, Jay.
This one's going
fast.
way too fast. This one's going way too fast.
Yeah, sometimes they just speed right along. That's what we're doing tonight. Again, a quick reminder: tomorrow night's a best of program from the week. One of the good shows from the week will play tomorrow night on all the stations in our family, and then Monday and Tuesday holidays for us. They will be best ofs from deeper in our archives, and we'll be back live Wednesday night.
Yeah, we got some great shows next week. So just make sure you tune in, and the list of the guests will be up on the Beyond Reality Radio site in the next day or so. So check it out.
Yeah, and tonight we're talking about Jeff Mudget's journey when he discovered his great-great-grandfather was HH Holmes, the notorious serial killer, considered America's first serial killer. His book is called Bloodstains, and the website is bloodstainsthebook.com. The television series, which will premiere on History Channel on July 11th, is called American Ripper. And Jeff, again, we knew it was going to go quickly tonight, but didn't realize that it would go this quickly. And we are getting close to running out of time. We still have a lot of things to talk about.
You know, I got to tell you, I looked at the clock myself and it went by. Before we get onto it, I got to tell you, Jason, if you decide to go back into Ghost Hunters, promise me that one show you'll go back into that basement at 63rd and Wallace where the murder castle was and do a show from there where History Channel once stated, if ever the paranormal was going to be proven, it would be there.
All right, but you have to promise me, Jeff, that you'll go with me.
Absolutely. I'll do it.
All right. So we'll set something up then.
We've got something to look forward to here. Jeff, tell us about the connection with Jack the Ripper. The series talks about this, and clearly you're not going to, reveal any of the conclusions. But what are some of the things that point to the connection?
You know, there's a mound of circumstantial evidence, and quite frankly, when I began writing the book, it wasn't even an issue with me. I had some friends contact me about a man in Pennsylvania who had studied this for decades. I got in contact with him. We discussed back and forth. Quite frankly, I had the same negative response that most people do when they first hear of it. But having practiced law before, I knew that you had to keep an open mind about issues like this. And once the evidence started piling up on it, I started changing my mind. And then when the people at TED let me give a presentation in Vancouver regarding Holmes being Jack the Ripper, they actually let me swear in the thousands in the audience. They gave them an app. They let me swear them in as my grand jury. I presented my evidence up on screen behind me, and then we voted afterwards. And I got a 77% guilty vote from that audience. I knew we had something. And when the people at History saw that TED Talk, they contacted me, and then it was from there we're on to a TV series.
Wow. So what kind of things, what kind of evidence do you have that supports him being Jack the Ripper, though?
Well, if you've done any work on Jack the Ripper, you know the letters, the Dear Boss and the Saucy Jack. Where he described the double event coming up and removing the ears from the victims. Well, we actually ran those letters by some handwriting experts, even computers. And it was remarkable that we came back with similar findings. And then we started going into Holmes having made trips to London, having Scotland Yard and the London papers believing that it was an American doctor who had committed the murders. It just kept piling up, and I think you're going to see what History gave me was a co-host who was a CIA operative who was trained in the latest forensic techniques. I kid about it. I call her Scully on set. That History doesn't let me call her that on the show, but from X-Files. And I'm the one that goes out on the edge, and she's the one that brings it back to the middle, but always with the latest scientific techniques. And we use every one there is now to test my theory whether Holmes is Jack the Ripper. And I think you're going to be amazed.
Were you able to see if his trips to England coincided with when the murders were happening?
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
Okay. That's going down the path. All right.
Yeah. So this particular 8 episodes, is it entirely dedicated to making the case for Holmes being Jack the Ripper?
You know, that's what the show is about. But as we tell the story, it becomes more and more about Holmes, because so much about Holmes had to do with whether he was Jack the Ripper or not. And, I got to tell you, when you tune in and watch the series and how the creative geniuses at McGilla Entertainment and History put this together, I got to tell you, I was watching some of the recreations today, and I'm amazed at how it was put together, how all the evidence was added up. It's almost as if we're at trial and we're presenting it to a jury, and I think we're going to change history.
Well, I think that's important. So, and a lot of times, especially this day and age, when I started doing reality, it was a different world. I went through all my shows. I signed off on them to to air because I wanted them to be real, bottom line. And most people don't have that ability. But you've been happy with all the way production's gone, the way it's all portrayed, the way it's being brought to light.
That's a tough question. As you know, as my author friends told me when we started, turning a book into a television series or movie is a difficult process, because I got to tell you, when I first started, I thought writing a book was harder. Now I know a television series is much harder than writing a book. They're forced to fit that whole thing into this the finite amount of time where I can just write another page. And I got to tell you, I've admired watching the process as it's gone on.
Well, and JV can attest to that as well. It's tough, especially like with me. I'll go to a place, I'll be there for 2 weeks, but it gets edited down to 43 minutes. So yeah. I totally understand what you're saying. I can write a book, I get into detail and everything else, but they have to edit things down to fit within a certain time frame because of commercials and so forth. And it does take away a lot of what you really want to see there.
And there's no doubt. And there's times when I would raise objections or suggestions, and they considered them all, but they have a lot of politics to deal with. They have a lot of the network has to have its say. The production company has to have its say. The advertisers have to have their say. It's a tough process.
Let's talk about the Holmes curse. You mentioned that. What is it?
The Holmes curse is probably the most fascinating aspect of the entire story. And Larson writes about it in The Devil in White City. When Holmes was allegedly executed, guys, anyone that was associated with his arrest, his incarceration, his trial, and execution was either murdered or suffered a terrible misfortune. And we're talking about 30, 40 people here. We're talking about the jury foreman, the prosecutor. We're talking about all those people associated with anything that would have made him angry during this process. One of the newspapers even talks about watching Holmes while the jury is discussing, his fate, him writing down names on a piece of paper. And that fascinated me. That was one of the earliest aspects of why I wanted to look into these strange stories of why his burial didn't make any sense, why his execution was fishy, why every newspaper article there was wrote a different story about those two aspects, which should have been able to be carried by the major newspapers in America, in black and white. There's really nothing to a man being taken up to a scaffold, a rope put around his neck, him hanged, him put into a pine box, led off to a burial, and then covered up in dirt, right? And that's not the way it was. So the further we got into the story, the more it looked like another Holmes conspiracy. And I think if you guys tune in, you're going to see we got to the bottom of it. We really did. And right now, as I said, I'm on pins and needles awaiting the results of the DNA testing.
So, but during the trial, he was pretty much, I guess, easiest way to say it is like writing a hit list, taking down names and considering who was going to pay the price.
That's exactly what I think he was doing. Now, none of the newspaper articles mentioned a hit list, but they did mention him writing a list of names down. Now, none of them were able to look over his shoulder and see what the names were. No one ever got that list, but I'm of the opinion that that's what it was.
All right, let's go to the phone lines here. We've got this is Joe from Indiana joining us. Joe, welcome to Beyond Reality Radio.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, Joe. Welcome to the show.
I got a question for Jeff there. That I'm concerned about all the victims of this man, of what he's done. And is there any way of knowing and tracking down the victims of this guy?
You mean the families, Joe? You're talking about the families of the victims?
Stuff like that. Is that that's what I'm trying to say? Yeah, for the family.
Yeah. That's a great question, Jeff. I'm assuming that since we don't know who all the victims are. That's probably a tough order, but what do you think?
No, that's one of my greatest purposes in my life now. And I got to tell you, when I go do book signings, I have periodically have people come up to me and say, and they shake my hand, and I feel kind of funny about it, to tell you the truth. But they'll say, my ancestor, I believe, was one of the victims of your great great grandfather. And while we don't hold that against you, any knowledge you can give us regarding that murder would help our family a lot. So I try to do that. Right now, history is helping me. We've submitted a request to the federal government. We want to excavate the grounds at the murder castle to see if we can uncover human remains and do some DNA testing on that, because quite frankly, guys, I think one of the greatest crimes of this whole story is that when the federal government bought that property, bought the murder castle and tore it down and built the post office over the top, they knew what had happened there. They knew that murders had occurred there. They knew there were possible human remains, and they just covered it over. And I think that's a crime.
Well, Jeff, let me ask you this, and this is a tough question. Do you feel any guilt, or have you been able to get past that because of this being your ancestor and the things he did?
Yeah, I do. And it's not like I had a choice in the matter, obviously.
Well, and that's it exactly. And that's why I say it's one of those things where even if you do, you and I both know you need to push past that, because there's nothing you can do. People are going to make their own decisions, and that it is what it is. But go on with what you're saying.
No, and I agree with you 100%. I got to tell you, though, I've never had someone come up and call me a name because of Holmes at any of the shows I do. Most come up and say they admire my courage, that I didn't run away from it, that I'm willing to tell the world the story. And I always buttress it with the fact that, hey, guys, I want to tell this story so that maybe we understand why it happened, and we can predict when it might happen again and stop it. And I know that's way out there. I know that's science fiction stuff maybe, but I know that it's, in the future, the way knowledge is building on us so much in our lives these days, there's a possibility that those things are possible in the future.
Hey, Joe, did we answer your questions?
Yeah, most of it. One more real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The compensation to the families that would help them, not actually give them money or anything like that. I'm just saying compensation to the families to help them recognize that their families was involved with this, to help a proper burial or anything like that. Is there any way that the profits that you make from this, that I know you're not doing it for a personal profit, but to help in that situation? Family.
Yeah, maybe Jeff, like some kind of monument or memorial or something, and maybe something like that already
just
exists.
Some sort of closure.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And I got to tell you, I asked the federal government if I could, with my own money, put a bronze monument on the grounds at the murder castle, not celebrating Holmes, but the victims.
Yeah.
And guys, they refused me.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I don't know. We only have a few minutes left here, and I did want to bring one more point up. When you looked at the life of Holmes and you learned more and more about this man, did you see anybody else in history from that point forward that you would compare him to, that was kind of the same kind of evil, the same kind of person?
Yeah, I kind of know where you're going, and it's a different, and I don't know how to compare those types of evils. I mean, this is a man who took the evil and used it with his own fingers, murdering, torturing, dismembering human beings. The ones I think you're trying to get out of the ones that ordered soldiers to do things. I think there's a difference. I'm not an expert at that. Maybe you guys could help me with that subject. I tend to think that this man who could take a young woman down in a basement and hear her scream while he removed an organ was the worst there was.
Oh, absolutely. Doing that with their own hands instead of working through others. It's a total different type of individual.
So Jeff,
I agree.
Jeff, the television series begins airing July 11th. You said there's talk of a second season. What other projects do you have on your hit list of things to do as follow-ups to this?
Thanks a lot. There's a pending major motion picture with my book. There's a pending live Broadway play where Holmes will go up on stage and talk to the audience about his antics, which I got to tell you, if that's done right, it could just be, it would be earth-shattering to me. I've got a second book I'm working on. It has nothing to do with Holmes. You know, one of the things about writing, you guys know what a platform is. I have a platform to write a book because of who my ancestor was. And while people say they like my writing, I wanted to try to do something which has nothing to do with Holmes to see if I had any ability to write whatsoever. So I've got a detective story coming out, which I'm going to put out after the series is over. So I'll let you guys know about that when I publish it.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us, Jeff. And we got to talk again when the show is airing and get you back on to talk about some of the episodes.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. And Jason, keep your promise. Let's go down into that basement together.
All right, sounds good. We'll figure it out. So awesome. You have a great night. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, so our guest has been Jeff Mudget. His book is Bloodstains. The website is bloodstainsthebook.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up. It's Beyond Reality Radio, Jason and JV. Okay, we're going to try this. Counting is, I don't know. We'll see how it works. Thank you. Thank you for the help there, Kristen Minden. That's very helpful. 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. You take one down, you pass it around. 98 bottles of beer on the wall, 98 bottles of beer on the wall, 98 bottles of beer. You take one down, you pass it around. 97 bottles of beer on the wall. 96 bottles of beer on the wall, 96 bottles of beer. You take one down, you pass it around. 95 bottles of beer on the wall. I once had a girl, or should I say, she once had me. She showed me her room, isn't it good, Norwegian wood. She asked me to stay and she told me to sit anywhere. Alrighty. back. It's Beyond Reality Radio. Great show tonight. It was very, very fascinating. Jeff's a great guy. I'm anxious to see this series. It's on History Channel starting the 11th.
Yeah, I'm really excited about seeing this show. And Jeff's just a wonderful guy. A big shout out to him for coming on and hanging out with us and talking about it. Make sure you check out American Ripper at July 11th. So if you haven't yet, head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio, like the Facebook page, and then head to beyondrealityradio.com. Grab the free iPhone and Android app. Again, tomorrow night's going to be a best of every Friday. We are taking Monday and Tuesday off for the 4th of July, and then we're back with all new shows.
Yeah, great stuff starting Wednesday night again. And Monday and Tuesday will be good shows, too. Some good things going to be replayed.
Yeah, we appreciate the support. The show is a success, all because of you, and we know it here. So, all right, you listen to Jason and JV. Everybody have a safe and enjoyable 4th of July, and we'll catch you all next week.